Shalom and welcome to the weekend edition of the Daily Dose of Hebrew. We're continuing our work in Jeremiah chapter 8, this long oracle of judgment against God's people. And as God has promised, he is sending the enemy against them. And verse 16 here, we're going to see and experience and hear what this people will be seeing and experiencing and hearing. Let's go ahead and read this verse in Hebrew as we get started. Midan nishma nachrat susav mikol mitzchalot abirav ra'asha kol haaretz vayavo'u va'okalu eretz umloa ir veyoshveva. So we start with from Dan, midan. This is just our little preposition min here. The nun is assimilated into that dagesh, and Dan is the name of the tribe of Dan. Now, the tribes in the northern kingdom were taken away captivity long before Jeremiah's day, but Dan is still the idea of the northernmost tribe. You remember they were way up north, north of the Sea of Galilee. So from Dan, so from way up north, when the invaders always came down from the north there through Syria and Lebanon and into the land of Israel, from Dan is heard or has been heard. What do we have here? This is going to be a perfect. It's going to be a 3ms. And with that n prefix right here, this is a nifal from our verb shama. Shama, which means to hear, and a nifal would be to be heard. So from Dan has been heard. Well, what has been heard? Nacharat. This is a noun. It's only used once. It's a hapax, as we call it. It would probably be written with a hey. And it's in construct form here, which is why we get the tau. But since it's the only time we find it, we have to take it with the tau. And it's from a verb which means to blow very strongly. It's used actually back in 629, I think, for blowing of a bellows in a furnace. So here it's the snorting in this context, the snorting of his... now, you probably recognize this word here, sus. That's one of your first vocabulary words, wasn't it? Horse. And then this suffix, pronoun suffix on the end, which is a 3ms suffix, but on a plural noun with that yod there. So this wouldn't be sus, singular. It would be susim, plural. And then we add the pronoun suffix 3ms. So it's his horses. So it's the snorting, because it's definite over here, so it's definite back here in the construct chain. The snorting of his horses. Whose horse? Who's the his? Well, it could be the king of Babylon. It could be the army of Babylon. It could be the Babylonians in more of a collective sense. Either way, so we will probably translate this as a plural in our modern translations, but his referring to all the Babylonians with their king. And then from the voice, or probably sound is better here. Once again, min plus voice, and I'm going to say the voice because we're going to see it's in a long construct chain. The sound of, now this is a word which is only found a couple times. It's always found in the plural, and it means neighing, the sound, again, that a horse would make. It's found here, and I think in, what's the other reference? 1327. Jeremiah 13:27, we find it again. So it's the sound of the neighings of Abirav. Well, once again, we'll come back to this word, but we see once again we have this suffix 3ms on a plural noun. So this would be abirim. Well, what is an abir? Well, that's actually an adjective, which means something that's mighty or strong or powerful. Sometimes it's used of men, but here it's being used of horses in this context. It's parallel with this one up here, and the neighings. So it's the sound of the neighings of their strong horses. Stallions might be a good translation for that. And from that, the sound of the neighings of the horses, all the land, with the article here, trembles. So here we have a perfect. This is a 3fs with this ending on it right here, because the subject is ha'aretz, all the land, and it's a kal from a verb ra'ash, which means to tremble or to shake. So all the land trembles because at the sound, or because of the sound, the neighing of the stallions. And they come or we may even translate they enter, but they have come, again, in this prophetic vision. So this is an imperfect IMPF, consecutive, very clearly right here, with a vav at the beginning, with the end, yod at the beginning, pardon me, and a vav at the end. So this is going to be a 3MP. Could be referring to the horses, could be referring to the men and the horses, or the armies, or just the Babylonians in general. They have come and they have devoured. So above, again, imperfect consecutive, it's going to be a 3MP. It's going to be a kal. This is a kal over here, and this is a kal here from akal. There we go. Meaning to eat or to devour. And they have devoured the land and her, referring to land, and her fullness. Is from a verb mala, meaning to be full. So this is a noun meaning fullness, and with a pronoun suffix, a 3fs suffix. That's not a dagesh, that's called a mapik, which shows us that we have actually a 3fs referring back to the land over here. So the suffix is the land. So they have entered, they have come, they have devoured the land and its fullness, the city and the inhabitants, those dwelling. This is a participle. It's going to be a masculine plural participle. Usually would be, with this ending here, it'd be im, but this is in the construct state with, and this is a little bit unusual, with a preposition and a pronoun suffix. So the inhabitants of in her, and her, again, referring to the city here. So it's devoured the fullness of the land, but also the city and the ones dwelling in her. A little unusual to find a construct built off a preposition, but it does happen, and that's what we have here. Those who are dwelling in her. So that's what's going to happen when the invaders arrive in the land. Pretty straightforward. Let's go ahead and hide our work, look at a couple of translations very quickly. Not a lot of variation with our different translations. ESV, the snorting of their horses is heard from Dan, from way up north. At the sound of the neighing of their stallions, the whole land quakes. They come and devour the land, translating this more as a present. Again, this is in the prophetic vision, this is what Jeremiah has seen, and now he's presenting it to the people. They come and devour the land and all that fills it. The city, it's not specifically the city here, but in the context it's referring to obviously Jerusalem, and those who dwell in it. And just a different translation here, the Christian Standard Bible. You're going to see there's not a lot of variation. From Dan, the snorting of horses is heard. At the sound of the neighing of mighty steeds, stallions, the whole land quakes. They come to devour the land and everything in it. Here's sort of a consequence here. They're making it for their purpose, which is not a bad way of translating this vav right here. It's an interpretation, but a good one. To devour the land and everything in it, the city and all its residents. And almost all the major translations will go in the same direction. The judgment is coming. It's too late now to stop it. The people have refused to repent under Jeremiah's preaching. That's going to continue until it actually will happen. That day will come. What God says is going to happen is going to happen. We'll check back with us soon as we continue working through Jeremiah 8 in the weekend edition of the Daily Dose of Hebrew. Shalom.